Ladies and gentlemen, there comes a night in every destiny when the body that carried you becomes too small to contain what you're about to become. Tonight is that night. Tonight, the structure you've called you will tremble under the pressure of purpose. Muscles will shake, bones will groan, not from weakness, but from the upgrade that heaven has scheduled for you. Tonight, your body will fall apart because it's time for your upgrade. You see, purpose is never contained in comfort. When destiny calls a person chosen, it also places a demand that their current version cannot carry. This is why your body, your habits, your fears, your old mindsets must collapse under the weight of the new glory God is about to deposit into you. There is a sacred moment in every person's life when God interrupts their comfort, not to punish them, but to provoke the next version of who they are meant to be. It's not always loud. Sometimes it's quiet. Sometimes it doesn't come with warning, thunder, or even explanation. It comes in the form of what feels like collapse. You lose your rhythm. Your strength fails you. The peace you once had now feels fragile. Things you used to manage with ease now overwhelm you. And you wonder, what's happening to me? Let me tell you something dangerous but true. You are falling apart because you are about to come together. The divine pattern of growth is not pretty, it is painful. The caterpillar doesn't become a butterfly by adding wings to its back. No. It enters into a season of complete breakdown. The very thing it depended on for movement, for identity, for survival, its own body, is melted away in the darkness of the cocoon. And it is in that secret suffering, that holy undoing, that heaven performs its most powerful upgrades. You see, we've been trained to believe that success comes from addition. Add more strength, add more wisdom, add more strategies. But in the kingdom of God, transformation rarely begins with addition. It begins with subtraction. It begins with surrender. It begins with God removing the pieces of you that are too small for where He's taking you. There are pieces of your personality that served you when you were surviving, but they are a liability now that you're stepping into purpose. There are attitudes that protected you in past seasons, but they are chains in the season you're walking into. And so the loving hand of God begins to strip away the versions of you that you thought you needed. And it hurts, not because He's trying to destroy you, but because He's refusing to let you settle. Some of you are going through exactly that right now. You feel disoriented, you feel disqualified, you feel like you're losing touch with who you used to be. That's not the devil, that's not failure, that's not weakness. That is the signature of God on a soul He has chosen to upgrade. We must stop viewing breaking as defeat. In the kingdom, breaking is sacred. Jesus broke bread before He multiplied it. The alabaster jar had to be broken before the fragrance could fill the room. The veil in the temple had to be torn before the presence of God could flood into the lives of ordinary people. And don't forget, the body of Jesus Himself had to be broken before salvation could be released to the world. So why do you think your body, your old mindset, your old strength, your old way of doing things can remain intact while you're being chosen to walk in something eternal? God doesn't break what He's discarding, He breaks what He's preparing. This is why many of you have been misreading your season. You think you're losing everything, but heaven is upgrading everything. You're interpreting the disconnection as rejection, but heaven is not rejecting you, it is realigning you. The friends who left weren't punishment, they were prophecy. The opportunities that dried up weren't closed doors, they were protection. God is saying that version of you is no longer valid for the assignment I placed ahead. Let it fall apart, let it collapse, let it die, because resurrection is already in motion. And let me be clear, this is not motivational fluff. This is biblical law. Every great man or woman in Scripture had to be broken before they could become. Moses was a prince in Pharaoh's palace, but God broke him in the desert for 40 years to turn him into a deliverer. Joseph had the dream in his father's house, but it was the pit and the prison that developed the maturity to manage the palace. David was anointed king while still smelling like sheep, but it was running for his life in caves that taught him how to rule a nation with humility and wisdom. So if you're feeling like the pressure is unexplainable, the pain unbearable, and the process unending, take heart. You're not cursed. You're chosen. The crushing is not proof that God has abandoned you. It's proof that He has invested in you. And now He's calling you out of your current shell. But that shell doesn't open with ease. It must be cracked, torn, broken. Even Jesus in the Garden of Gethsemane felt the agony of becoming. The Son of God, sweating drops of blood, wrestling with the assignment He was born for. He asked the Father to take the cup away, not because He lacked faith, but because even divinity knows that becoming costs something. But do you remember His next words? Not my will, but yours be done. That's the moment He broke. Not physically, but internally. His will surrendered to God's will, and when He broke, history shifted. Salvation was born. The world was never the same. And you, chosen one, are standing in your own Gethsemane. Tonight may be the night when your old self shatters, your old dreams fade, your old patterns collapse. But if you surrender in this moment, what is born next will carry glory. It will carry fire. It will carry impact beyond your imagination. Because when God breaks something, He never leaves it broken. He breaks to rebuild. He tears down to establish. He wounds to awaken. So don't resist the breaking. Embrace it. Because what feels like destruction is actually divine construction. The old body is falling apart, but the new you, the anointed, upgraded, heaven-mipped you, is rising. And once this version is revealed, hell won't know what hit it. Purpose is not polite. It does not knock gently. It doesn't whisper. When purpose steps into a room, it disrupts everything that is not aligned with it. It is heaven's non-negotiable assignment for your life, and when it arrives, it comes with force. It carries the weight of eternity and refuses to rest in a vessel that is too weak to carry it. That is why when God calls someone chosen, He doesn't just bless them, He begins to rebuild them, because the purpose that is coming demands a body, a mind, a spirit, and a system that can sustain it. When you pray for purpose, you're not praying for more blessings. You are inviting a divine disruption. You are opening the gates for God to come and examine every dimension of your life. And when He does, He doesn't ask for permission to adjust what's broken. He doesn't negotiate with dysfunction. He begins to upgrade you from the inside out. And the truth is, many people want the glory of purpose without the grind of preparation. But God does not pour new wine into old wineskins. He does not send heavenly downloads into corrupted software. Before He releases the assignment, He initiates the upgrade. The problem is we often romanticize purpose. We think it's a feeling, a passion, a moment of glory. But purpose is a system. It is structure. It is capacity. It is the ability to carry the weight of influence, leadership, revelation, and destiny without collapsing under it. And when your purpose starts to rise, everything in your life that is unprepared to handle it will begin to tremble. The friendships that were fine in the last season suddenly don't make sense anymore. The places that used to give you comfort start to feel empty. The routines you once depended on begin to fail you. That's not confusion, that's a signal, a sign, a message from heaven. It's time to upgrade. Some people are confused right now. You feel like you're outgrowing everything, and you are, but that's not pride, it's prophecy. You're not arrogant, You're awakening. You're not too much. You've just been trying to shrink yourself to fit places that can't contain your next level. And purpose won't allow it, because your calling is not interested in your comfort zone. It is only interested in your capacity. And God will stretch you, painfully if necessary, until you become the version of yourself that can carry what He has called you to build. Think about Noah. God gave him a purpose to build an ark that would preserve the future of the world. But notice what came first. God didn't just give him the vision, He gave him the dimensions. Purpose always comes with divine specifications. It's not a general calling. It's a specific blueprint. And that blueprint demands materials, labor, patience, discipline, and transformation. If Noah tried to build that ark with random dimensions or rush through the process, the ark would collapse. And so would the destiny tied to it. That's why God doesn't let you skip stages. Because shortcuts in preparation create collapse in manifestation. And some of you are frustrated because you thought you were ready. You thought your gift was enough. You thought your heart was enough. But God is showing you that love without structure, passion without discipline, and gifting without development can't sustain purpose. You need more than inspiration. You need infrastructure. And God is building that infrastructure in you right now. He's digging into your emotional systems, your patterns of thinking, your physical energy, your daily habits, because every single one of those things becomes the ground your purpose will either stand on or sink in. This is why your body is being upgraded. You can't eat the same, sleep the same, move the same when your purpose changes. Your body is a container of divine assignment. It must be strong. It must be clear. It must be alert. Your mind must be trained to recognize divine timing. Your emotions must be disciplined to respond with faith, not fear. Your spirit must be alive, sensitive, in tune. Purpose is not casual. Purpose is warfare. Purpose is leadership. Purpose is visibility. Purpose is responsibility. And it does not apologize for requiring all of you. When God called Jeremiah, He told him, "Before I formed you in the womb, I knew you and I set you apart." He didn't say, "I loved you." He said, "I appointed you." Love is universal. Appointment is specific. You are not just loved. You are appointed, chosen, handpicked. And with that appointment comes the weight of preparation. Even Jesus had to go through a hidden season before He was revealed. 30 years of obscurity for 3 years of public ministry. Why? Because even the Son of God had to be upgraded in silence before He could walk in power. So when your body starts to feel like it's failing you, when your heart feels heavy, when your days feel disrupted, remember, it is not punishment. It is preparation. You are not breaking down. You are being stripped of what no longer belongs to the version of you that is rising. You are not losing your way. You are being realigned. Every ache is an announcement. Every delay is divine. Every pressure is prophetic. God is not ignoring you. He is upgrading you. And here's what you must understand. When the upgrade begins, you don't get to decide what stays. You don't get to hold on to the parts of you that God says can't go forward. When heaven issues the call for upgrade, it demands obedience. Reluctance delays it. Resistance makes it painful. But surrender unlocks it. When you say, "God, upgrade my body, my mind, my discipline, my vision, my systems," you are giving God permission to remove what you thought was essential and replace it with what is eternal. This is why many people miss their moment, because they want to feel chosen but not live chosen. They want the stage but not the shaping, the visibility but not the victory over themselves. But chosen people don't chase platforms, they survive process. They don't just talk about destiny, they submit to the development destiny demands. Because the truth is, If you don't upgrade, you'll sabotage your own calling. You'll carry something too heavy for your current capacity, and it will crush you. That's why God is dealing with you so seriously. That's why the old version of you can't find peace anymore. That's why you're restless, agitated, unsettled. Purpose has outgrown your previous structure. And now, heaven is offering an upgrade, not because you're not loved, but because you're called. Because what's coming through you is too important to allow the old you to handle it. So let the upgrade begin, because purpose doesn't ask for permission, it demands transformation. The most powerful transformations do not start in your circumstances, they begin in your spirit. They don't begin with money, status, or visibility. They begin in the invisible arena of thought, belief, and inner alignment with truth. This is why some people change locations but never change outcomes. Why some get a promotion but still feel empty. Why others step into a relationship and still wrestle with loneliness. Because unless the transformation happens internally first, the external changes become decorations on a decaying structure. They look good on the outside, but collapse when the winds of reality blow. God does not waste upgrades on a corrupted foundation. He deals with the root before the fruit. He reprograms the internal before he repositions the external. The issue is not always the people around you or the opportunities you lack. It's the systems of belief within you that are still operating from an outdated version of who you were. Heaven sees the calling on your life and begins to dig deep into your internal architecture. That's why transformation hurts, because it forces you to confront the version of yourself you built in survival, so it can be replaced with the version God designed for dominion. Your spirit is the control center of your life. It is the command tower. What happens in your spirit eventually manifests in your habits, your relationships, your finances, your decisions, and your destiny. If your internal compass is still tuned to fear, no amount of external progress will bring you peace. If your heart still clings to scarcity, even abundance will feel like it's never enough. And if your identity is still built on wounds, you will see enemies in places where God has sent help. So what does God do when He begins to upgrade your life? He doesn't always start with your environment. He starts with your essence. He starts with your thought patterns. He starts with your definitions. He starts with how you see Him and how you see yourself. Because you can't walk in newness with an old perspective. You can't carry glory while still carrying guilt. You can't hold divine vision with a divided heart. God deals with your internals first, because the weight of your assignment cannot be sustained by an untransformed soul. That's why many of you are in a season where God is not answering certain prayers the way you expected, because He knows that what you're asking for externally is unsustainable until the internal work is finished. You're asking for the palace, but God is strengthening your soul in the pasture. You're praying for the platform, but God is perfecting your character in the shadows. He's not ignoring you, He's insulating you. He's building an internal infrastructure that won't collapse under the weight of the very thing you've been asking Him to send. Jesus said, the kingdom of God is within you. That means if the kingdom is not operating in you, it can't manifest through you. We've got too many people building ministries, businesses, brands, and platforms with fractured inner lives. They sound anointed, but they're operating from unhealed places. They perform, but they can't sustain peace. And eventually the outer world crumbles because it was never truly aligned with heaven's internal order. God is more concerned with the health of your inner world than the size of your outer influence. Because real success is not measured by applause. It's measured by obedience and wholeness. The Apostle Paul said, be transformed by the renewing of your mind. Not your clothes, not your house, not your circle, your mind. Because if the mind is still living in Egypt, you can be physically in Canaan and still live like a slave. You can be free and still think like a prisoner. That's why the Israelites wandered for 40 years, because their bodies left Egypt, but their minds didn't. And God refused to let a generation walk into promise while still thinking like victim. That is divine mercy. It may feel like delay, but it's actually protection. God delays manifestation to protect you from self-destruction. So the transformation begins with truth. The truth that you are not who your trauma says you are. The truth that you are not what people labeled you. The truth that your past cannot hold your future hostage. The truth that God placed treasure in you before your life ever encountered trouble. When that truth is planted in your spirit, it begins to shift your identity. And when your identity shifts, everything connected to you must either rise or fall. This is why your relationships feel strained, why certain opportunities fall through, why you feel disconnected from who you used to be. Because you're being rebuilt from the inside out. And this process cannot be skipped. Because what is not transformed internally will sabotage you externally. If you don't deal with the spirit of insecurity, you misinterpret every challenge as rejection. If you don't conquer fear within, you'll call every delay a defeat. And if you don't let God correct your inner language, you'll keep prophesying limitation over a life God called limitless. This is not just psychology, it's spiritual alignment. It's recognizing that your words, your thoughts, and your emotions are not separate from your destiny. They are the architects of it. Many of you are in the middle of this transformation. You feel like your desires are changing, your energy is shifting, your appetites are being cleansed. That's not boredom. That's not burnout. That's the divine detox. God is extracting the things that once satisfied your flesh but now suffocate your spirit, and you must not resist it. You must let the old programs die. Let the outdated versions of you collapse. Let God write new code into your soul. Because the new version of you cannot operate on the same spiritual software that used to run your life. You can't walk in royalty with a peasant mentality. You can't carry prophetic assignments while still battling private shame. You can't lead others while silently believing you're unworthy of the very promise you preach. So God says, let me in. Not just to bless your outer life, but to rebuild your inner life. Let me sit on the throne of your identity. Let me rewrite your inner narrative. Let me speak truth where the enemy has spoken lies. Let me shine light in the places you've hidden from even yourself. Because when transformation begins within, everything else follows. Peace becomes normal. Clarity becomes consistent. Obedience becomes a reflex. Joy becomes unshakable. And purpose flows not from striving, but from alignment. When your spirit is aligned with heaven, you don't chase your destiny. It unfolds around you. You don't panic, you trust. You don't compete, you become. And you don't fear the future, you walk in it. Inspiration will light a fire in you, but reconstruction will teach you how to build something with it. And that's the problem. We live in a world addicted to inspiration, but allergic to transformation. We love the high of a good message, the thrill of a powerful word, the emotional lift of being reminded that we are chosen. But choosing comes with chiseling. Being chosen isn't just about favor, it's about formation. God doesn't choose you to stay the same. He chooses you to become what your destiny demands. And to become, you must be torn down in places and rebuilt on stronger foundations. There is a divine difference between a motivated person and a molded one. Inspiration is what you feel. Reconstruction is what you endure. And when heaven calls someone chosen, the first order of business is not to send them blessings. It's to start breaking old blueprints. The blueprint of how you think, how you trust, how you process pain, how you handle pressure, how you relate to people, how you steward time. Because God will not build His vision on a version of you that was shaped by trauma, fear, pride, or dysfunction. He will reconstruct you in the image of the assignment, not in the image of your history. Think of how God dealt with Abraham. He didn't just tell him he'd be the father of nations. He called him out from everything familiar. His land, his people, his culture. Why? Because reconstruction cannot happen in an environment that keeps reinforcing the old identity. You can't build something new in a place where everything around you keeps expecting you to be the old you. So God removes you, not because He's isolating you, but because He's tearing down everything you thought was secure, not to hurt you, but to hollow out space for what's truly sacred. And it hurts. Reconstruction is not romantic. It feels like loss. It feels like identity theft. It feels like confusion, because God begins removing your crutches, your coping mechanisms, your distractions, your comfort zones. He begins letting things fall apart, not because you're failing, but because you're being freed. And if you don't understand the process, you'll call deliverance a disaster. You'll resist the very storm that's sent to liberate you. You'll pray against what heaven permitted for your transformation. See, God knows that inspiration fades. You can leave a church service shouting and wake up the next day doubting. You can hear a powerful prophecy and still not be prepared for the process it initiates. That's why God doesn't rely on your feelings to form you. He relies on obedience, surrender, and pressure. Because pressure reveals what you really believe. It exposes the cracks in your faith. It exposes the weak spots in your character. It pulls back the emotional makeup and shows whether your trust is built on sand or stone. And then God goes to work. Reconstruction is a holy stripping. It's when God starts removing the walls you built in your own strength and replacing them with foundations laid in truth. He strips your ambition of ego. He strips your plans of pride. He strips your goals of self-glorification. He begins to refine your motives, your decisions, your associations, not because He's cruel, but because He's kind. Because He refuses to allow the weight of destiny to rest on a structure that will collapse under pressure. If you are chosen, you must be rebuilt. That's why some of you feel like your life is in pieces, like nothing is stable, like you're walking through a demolition site. That's not punishment, it's prophecy in progress. God is not destroying you. He's destroying what was never meant to be part of your calling. He's breaking the agreements you made in fear. He's dismantling the identity you built in survival. He's calling forth the version of you that can carry oil without leaking it. And to do that, He must first remove the mask. Because the chosen don't just need motivation. They need inner construction. You don't just need to feel better. You need to become better. You don't just need to shout. You need to be shaped. And the shaping doesn't happen on the mountaintop of applause. It happens in the valleys of pressure, in the hidden places, in the quiet surrender, in the wrestle between who you were and who God says you are. And if you skip this process, you may impress people, but never impact purpose. When God begins this reconstruction, He doesn't start with what's visible. He starts with the deep places, the root of your decisions, the hidden desires, the unspoken fears. He starts where no one else sees. And this is why some people appear successful, but spiritually they're crumbling, because they never let God go deep. They settled for looking rebuilt without actually being rebuilt. But the truly chosen don't want performance, they want power. They want the internal authority that only comes from true transformation. Remember Peter. Jesus didn't just inspire him. He said, I will make you a fisher of men. That's reconstruction. That's identity rewiring. Peter thought he was one thing and Jesus declared he was another. But Peter didn't walk in that calling until he was broken, until he denied Jesus, faced himself, repented, and was restored. Because even the most anointed people must be undone before they can be remade. You can be bold and still need breaking. You can be loyal and still need reshaping. Because God is not building your future on your emotions. He's building it on your endurance. This is where many fall off. Because inspiration is instant, but reconstruction is a process. And processes are not glamorous. They're messy. They involve waiting, wrestling, silence, surrender, and trust. But if you allow God to finish what He started, you'll come out of this not just motivated, but made new. Not just encouraged, but equipped. Not just on fire, but forged by fire. And when you walk out of the reconstruction season, you'll carry a weight of glory that no applause, no title, and no recognition can ever replace. There comes a time in your journey when what used to work no longer works, not because it wasn't effective, but because it's expired. Heaven will not allow you to use outdated systems to build a future that demands divine innovation. You cannot walk into a new season dragging the skeletons of your last one. And yet, this is the mistake many make. They try to upgrade their results without upgrading their systems. They try to demand a new harvest while using the same broken tools that barely worked in the last field. But God is too invested in your purpose to let you succeed with a structure that was only meant for your survival. You have to understand something about divine seasons. They don't just change your environment, they require a shift in your execution. The instructions of yesterday will not unlock the doors of tomorrow. God may have blessed you with manna in the wilderness, but in the promised land, you're going to have to plant and harvest. The miracle in the desert was God's mercy. But the responsibility in the promised land is God's maturity. He is not raising children to forever beg for provision. He is developing kings and queens who know how to manage territory, steward influence, and walk in authority. And that means learning a new system. What do I mean by system? I'm talking about the way you think, the way you plan, the way you pray, the way you manage time, the way you lead, the way you respond to pressure. Systems are not just routines, they are mindsets. And many of you are spiritually tired, not because your calling is too heavy, but because your system is too outdated. You're trying to sustain a divine assignment with a flesh-based strategy. You're trying to launch heaven's vision with earthly habits. And God in His mercy is letting your current system fail, not to shame you, but to awaken you. Because He won't allow you to crown dysfunction just because it got you this far. Consider Moses. He was instructed to strike the rock for water in one season, but in the next, God told him to speak to it. The method changed, the system shifted, and Moses, in his frustration, used an old instruction in a new context and lost his entrance into the promise. This is a serious principle. Disobedience is not always rebellion. It's sometimes the result of refusing to upgrade your understanding. God's presence does not equal His permission to keep doing what you've always done. He may still be with you, but He's waiting for you to catch the revelation that it's time to shift. This is why some of you feel stuck. You're gifted, anointed, and chosen, but the results aren't matching the effort. It's not because you're not called. It's because your system is no longer supported by heaven. You've outgrown that level of discipline, that level of thinking, that level of preparation. You're trying to run a marathon in toddler shoes. You're trying to house glory in a structure designed for grief. And heaven says no. No more using trauma as a strategy. No more letting insecurity dictate your pace. No more blaming your history for your hesitation. It's time to build a system that aligns with where you're going, not where you've been. And here's the hard part. Upgrading your system means letting go of comfort. It means unlearning what used to feel safe. It means tearing down altars you built in the wilderness and asking God for blueprints for the future. It means getting honest about what no longer serves your growth. It means being willing to say, God, this worked then, but I surrender it now. Because even good things become dangerous when you use them past their season. The boat that saved you in the flood will sink you in shallow water if you don't know when to get out and walk. The Israelites had to stop thinking like slaves. David had to stop thinking like a shepherd. Esther had to stop thinking like an orphan. Joseph had to stop thinking like a prisoner. Their systems had to change before their positions could be sustained. And God is doing the same in you. He's confronting your system. He's showing you where you're leaking energy, wasting time, and mismanaging opportunity, not because He's angry, but because He's preparing you. The next level of your calling won't be accessed by feeling inspired. It'll be accessed by being strategic. Wisdom is the weapon of the chosen. But don't confuse strategy with striving. This is not about hustle. It's about alignment. It's about building in sync with heaven's rhythm, not in competition with the world. When you align your system with God's strategy, you find grace, flow, clarity, and supernatural acceleration. But when you keep trying to manufacture results with expired methods, you will experience resistance, fatigue, confusion, and frustration. That's not always the devil. Sometimes that's divine resistance. God is blocking your progress in the old system so He can push you into the new one. And yes, this process can feel like loss, because when God calls you out of an old system, He doesn't always show you the full picture of the new one. He invites you to build by faith, to walk by revelation, not routine, to obey before you fully understand. Because systems built on faith are sustained by grace, but systems built on fear are sustained by control. He's removing your false sense of certainty. He's teaching you how to depend not just on principles, but on presence. And presence will always require movement. This is your moment of transition. Heaven is shifting the floor beneath your feet. What used to hold you is being removed. What used to support you is being replaced. Not because it was wrong, but because it's too small. You're not in danger, you're in development. You're not being punished, you're being positioned. And the upgrade you've been praying for will not come through intensity alone. It will come through intentionality. You must build new systems, Spirit-led systems, kingdom thirst strategies, disciplines that match your destiny. God is not just giving you a word, He's giving you a framework. He's not just giving you a vision, He's giving you a vessel. And the vessel must be strong enough to carry the vision without cracking. So let go of the outdated system. Mourn it if you must, but don't return to it. It was necessary for a season, but it's no longer relevant. Heaven is doing a new thing, and you must have a new structure to contain it. Because the chosen are not just inspired people, they are strategic builders. And builders must know when to change the blueprint. There's a sacred paradox hidden in the process of the chosen. Before God uses your body as a vessel of glory, He allows it to fall apart, not to destroy you, but to deconstruct the false you, the version of you that was shaped by pain, built by pressure, held together by pride, and fueled by performance. When heaven calls you, it doesn't just hand you a crown, it hands you a chisel. It hands you a mirror. It calls your body into the furnace, because the flesh must burn before the spirit can rise. Before your life becomes a temple, your flesh must become an altar. You must understand, God never blesses a body He hasn't broken. Every chosen one must undergo the mystery of divine breaking. Your emotions, your ambitions, your cravings, your attachments, all of it must pass through the fire, because what you built in survival cannot sustain you in significance. You've learned how to perform, how to impress, how to stay functional while bleeding inside. But God didn't choose you to survive. He chose you to carry glory. And glory requires death to the systems that used to keep you sane, but secretly kept you small. That's why the breaking feels violent. Because it's personal. It's not just a general trial, it's targeted surgery. Heaven is coming for the parts of you that block the flow of divine identity. Your dependency on people's approval, your addiction to applause, your fear of stillness, your obsession with outcomes. Heaven begins to expose your body, not just your physical frame, but your habits, your disciplines, your instincts, your cycles. Because what heaven is about to pour out, your current container cannot handle. It must be reformed. This is not about sin alone, it's about structure. God is not simply trying to correct your mistakes. He's trying to reconstruct your entire makeup. He's changing what motivates you. He's shifting how you respond to silence. He's tearing down the walls you built to protect yourself because those same walls are now blocking purpose. He's breaking the rhythm of self-reliance so you can finally rest in divine sufficiency. Your body is being called to something higher, something holier. And before it can rise in power, it must be emptied of everything counterfeit. Think of Jesus. Before he could release resurrection power, his body had to be broken. The Son of God, perfect in every way, still had to endure the shattering of the flesh. Why? Because even perfection had to pass through pain to fulfill purpose. The breaking of the body was not failure, it was fulfillment. It was the necessary pathway for glory to be revealed. And if Christ had to be broken to ascend, who are we to avoid the process? If he had to be pierced to become the doorway, what makes us think we can reign without wrestling? Your body falling apart is not the end, it's the beginning of realignment. Heaven is interrupting your sleep not to torment you but to wake you up. Heaven is allowing your energy to run low so you stop depending on caffeine and start depending on calling. Heaven is letting your image deteriorate so your identity can rise. Because what you used to call you was really just a suit tailored by trauma and decorated by culture. And now the Spirit of God is calling the real you to emerge from beneath the ruins. This is why your routines no longer work. This is why your cravings are changing. This is why what used to feel good now feels heavy. Because your body is no longer operating on old frequencies. God is tuning your flesh to a new rhythm. He's preparing your body to carry oil. Not just inspiration, but embodiment. You are being reintroduced to yourself, not as a broken vessel, but as a rebuilt sanctuary. But before the sanctuary rises, the scaffolding must collapse. And it hurts, it confuses you. You wonder why you're crying more, why you're feeling deeper, why your body reacts so violently to what you used to tolerate. That's not regression, it's resurrection in disguise. Your senses are being sanctified, your desires are being detoxed. Your instincts are being rewired because you can't carry destiny in a body still ruled by dysfunction. You can't walk into overflow if your nervous system still reacts like you're in survival mode. God is bringing healing to your biology so that it matches the authority of your spirit. Yes, you're tired. Yes, it feels like something in you is dying. But maybe that's exactly what's supposed to happen. Maybe what's dying is the version of you that God never authored. The version that was shaped by pleasing others. The version that only smiled to avoid confrontation. The version that lowered itself to be accepted. The version that betrayed its own boundaries to maintain connections. Heaven says, no more. Let that body fall apart. Let that shell crack. Let that performance die. Because what's coming next requires full embodiment, not halfway. Not broken on the inside and polished on the outside, but whole, integrated, free. Your body is not just a costume, it's a conduit. And if you are chosen, your body must come into agreement with your spirit. Your choices must reflect your calling, your diet, your sleep, your speech, your posture, your movement. It all must come into divine order, because your body is not a container for chaos. It's a vessel for glory. God is preparing your flesh to host fire, to walk in rooms with authority, to pray and feel the earth respond, to move and shift atmospheres. But that kind of presence cannot rest on a compromised temple. So He is cleansing, He is stretching, He is sobering, and yes, He is breaking. Not because you are being punished, but because you are being prepared. Heaven does not patch what it plans to remake. Heaven lets it fall, then heaven forms it again. So if your body is falling apart, rejoice. If you feel like you can't hold it together, thank God. If your rhythm is shattered and your strength is leaking, lift your hands. You are not dying. You are being reborn. What you feel is not failure, it's divine formatting. You are being rebuilt as a fit vessel for the season you were born to change. So tonight, chosen one, do not fear the falling apart. Rejoice in it. Do not curse the breaking. Bless it. For what is collapsing is not your destiny, but the disguise that tried to carry it. Your body is not being destroyed, it is being redesigned. The old systems are not failing you, they are being retired to make room for divine precision. You are not losing yourself. You are meeting the version of you that was always buried beneath performance, pressure, and pain. Heaven is upgrading you, not just in spirit, but in structure. You are being rewired to reign, reformed to carry glory, and reborn to walk in the fullness of your calling. So let the breaking come. Let the fire fall, because when the dust settles, what will rise from the ashes will not just be a survivor, but a vessel of revival. The chosen one does not crumble. The chosen one is carved. And tonight your body may fall apart, but tomorrow you will rise transformed.